Call to order the May 14th, 2025 Planning Commission meeting. Roll call, please.
Chair McNiff, Commissioner Banfield,
Here.
Commissioner Bright,
Here.
Commissioner Fitzgerald,
Here.
Commissioner Hodo, Commissioner Severson, Commissioner Stewart, Commissioner Zulk, and ex officio Underhill. You have a quorum?
So we have 3 sets of minutes to approve, and I think we should probably do them one by one rather than in group in case there are any changes to be made. So I'll first entertain a motion to approve the minutes for the January 8th, 2025 Planning Commission.
So. Second.
Is there any discussion, any changes? All in favor of approving the January 8th, 2025 Planning Commission minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next, I'll entertain a motion to approve the February 20th, 2025 Special Planning Commission minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Any changes, additions, discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. That motion also carries. Next, I'll entertain a motion to approve the March 12th, 2025 Planning Commission minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion, any changes? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving those minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next, we'll approve the agenda. I'll entertain a motion to do that.
So moved. Support.
All those in favor of approving, are there any changes? Anybody want to add things, delete things? All those in favor of approving the agenda signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Public comment on agenda items. Would you like to comment on the agenda items? Seeing no public to comment on the agenda items, we'll move on to, we have no public hearings, we have no old business, reports and recommendation and new business. I'll entertain a motion to receive the 2025 City of Marshall Master Plan draft.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor of receiving the 2025 City of Marshall Master Plan draft, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Director Strange.
Good evening. I'm gonna just take a minute and give you just a very high level, maybe highlight reel of the master plan as it's been worked on over the course of goodness, I'm not even sure when it started being worked on.
Yeah.
Okay.
We've been actively meeting as a committee for 6 months.
Yeah, it's been a while.
So I had a request to do a comparison between the last master plan and this current master plan. And that's not a very simple request because this master plan really was kind of started from scratch. It wasn't a go through and revise the old master plan. So I thought there was some incredible value in understanding what was not changed as a part of that process. So one of the questions that gets asked in the master planning process is, what do you like most about living in Marshall? Comments like, Marshall's a safe, friendly community with passionate people. Downtown is within walking distance of where I live. There's community events such as parades, the beauty of historic Marshall. I like that I can walk almost anywhere and feel safe. The public schools are excellent. Marshall's family friendly. It's a quiet hometown feel. These could be from today's survey answers, but they're responses from the 2014 survey. Those comments are still very similar to the comments that we received 10 years later. And so the things that people liked most about Marshall from this current survey, walkability, and this is in order. So number 1, walkability. Number 2, safety. Number 3, local restaurants and businesses. Number 4, historic character. And number 5 was that it was family friendly. In general, Marshall residents in both 2014 and the current plan, or in the current process, find the corridor between 69 and the Brooks Fountain to be the most aesthetically challenged part of town, with some potential safety hazards. When asked to describe the area, survey respondents were overwhelmingly negative. More pedestrian crossings, more landscaping, a softening of the area is desired. And this continues, currently to be a concern. They want to make all of our gateway corridors safer and more attractive. The River District is still a focus for multi-use building types and improvements. And that's really strongly desired. The old State Farm, now a land bank property, continues to be a focus of redevelopment. For the last master plan, participants generally agreed that with the concept of offering a mix of housing opportunities, single-family homes, independent senior living, and residential above commercial and office topped the list in that last master plan for residential development in Marshall. The focus was to draw young families to Marshall. And today we see several active projects adding residential to our downtown. And that is a continuing trend that's anticipated. Between 2000 and 2022, Marshall's population declined from 7,459 to 6,806. So it lost 10% of a population. But the median age increased from 36.4 to 45.4. Housing
Aging, yeah.
Housing remains a strong focus today. An influx of workers and their families are anticipated for the Blue Battery Park, Michigan. And there are multiple developers working in town while larger developments are anticipated. Housing is expensive. People would like to see family homes first, but unlike past surveys, there is interest in more options like small apartment complexes, townhomes, and mixed-use buildings. The addition of FiberNet to Marshall's offerings checked the box from the last master plan. So that was one of the goals from the last master plan. And it's become a significant draw for small businesses and those working from home. The Brooks Industrial Area has been designated as had been designated as a large industrial area. But further investigation since the last master plan found that the amount of buildable land is significantly less than anticipated due to the wetlands that are out there and their boggy soil conditions. Industrial use has now been pushed towards the major campus and along Industrial Road where there's still some open land opportunities. The area by Brooks is anticipated to be better suited for adding housing to Marshall. And that's reflected in the recommendations for the changes to the zoning map. A lack of cohesive signage continues to plague Marshall, and concerns were again raised about difficulties with wayfinding in our community. Cohesive signage is a problem, and it causes problems with wayfinding in the community. Yep. The future land use map has reduced the number of zones. There's less industrial types and less residential types. There were 5 residential types in that last plan. And they're also the idea is to also simplify the extent of those areas. This realignment is intended to modernize our approach, and it's something that we can continue to refine as we work through our zoning ordinance as kind of the next steps in this process after the master plan is adopted. Complete streets were proposed way back in 2012. And while the city continues to add sidewalks, the need for trail connectivity drove the development of a non-motorized plan as part of the current master plan. Multiple stakeholders of the trail systems are hopeful that the city will be able to improve the connectivity in coming years. The new plan also makes specific recommendations and provides greater detail regarding the desires for improving Michigan Avenue and making investments in sidewalks and bicycle infrastructure to connect our parks, neighborhoods to downtown and other key destinations. The new plan also addresses climate resiliency and the preservation of natural resources more explicitly, and focuses on leveraging natural resources more for resident benefit and tourism. The next steps that are towards the back of the master plan, of the current master plan, are intended to build from the 2012 master plan. We've taken steps to ensure, as part of our work here on the Planning Commission, we talk about commercial screening and, how we take care of our residents when they're, adjacent to commercial properties. We think about that sensitive, context development, right? And redevelopment as a part of our work. These topics are addressed in the plan's place types, where clear recommendations are made for the integration of a mix of uses in appropriate areas of the city. The plan also makes a series of recommendations for amending the zoning ordinance based on those goals. There is a sheet that I made a copy of. It has a little number 4 on the top right corner. And this is just a quick comparison. The goals that were stated in the 2015 master plan versus the more goals that were stated in the 2025 master plan. And I'm just going to call out a few of the words that really show up in both sides of those. Historic character in that first item, directly aligns with protecting and enhancing the historic integrity of Marshall. So that is, still kind of top of the list, right? The old plan talked about aesthetics and design, long-term stability of Marshall's neighborhoods, ensuring our employment base, and maintaining a transportation network. Those same words show up with making gateway corridors safer and more attractive, sustaining Marshall's future by expanding housing supply and choice, making Marshall area a hub for employment, fostering a safe transportation network. So a lot of the same words, right, are mirrored on both sides of that list. That is my attempt at a summary. Just an introduction, right? There's a lot more detail buried inside that document that I encourage you to wade into, and we will be able to answer maybe more specifics next month at the Planning Commission meeting.
Well,
Yeah.
and for those of you who haven't been sitting in on the commission meetings, do you have any questions about the document? 'Cause I mean, Aaron and I and Marcia have been through it a lot.
So I was wondering, so when you get down to page, I'm looking at 50 of 69, it talks about ADUs and DADUs. And these are like cottages, either attached or not attached, a backyard cottage. Would those fit current zoning, or would we have to change residential zoning to accommodate that?
Current residential allows duplexes, correct?
Yeah.
You'd have to change to a multifamily or above for 3s.
Yeah,
And then above 5s would be something, or above 4s would be something else
yeah,
entirely.
I'm not
correct?
sure, like, say with my house, if I don't really have a room, but if I wanted to put a little house in my backyard,
Mhm.
because it would be too, I don't know.
Right, current zoning probably would have to be modified for that,
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think, to
I think
allow
so
a
too.
detached unit, an additional unit.
So a backyard cottage is an independent residence
Yep.
in your backyard, okay?
How do they deal with it, with the deed and so forth?
Well, I
With
think,
landowners?
It should still be deeded the same. think.
think it's
The zoning
anticipated.
Just allow two structures, I think.
Yeah, it would be like, it would be a rental or a
CDOT.
mother-in-law
Yeah.
space, or
Guest house.
you're just out of college kid, you know, I think that's the anticipation is.
But non-related family?
It
Yeah.
wouldn't necessarily have to be related, for
Right.
sure, yeah. I don't think it would change ownership of the parcel.
Right.
It would be an ordinance thing, the city would just
Yeah.
allow.
Okay.
I don't understand that because I'm not an attorney, but
Yeah.
I don't understand it. I don't understand how you can own a piece of, own a residential unit and not own the property that it sits on.
You wouldn't, yeah.
So
you
it would be
wouldn't-
like a rental.
Tall.
It'd be like a rental,
Yeah, okay, rental.
yeah,
All
it'd be
right.
a detached rental,
Yep, yep.
yeah, not separate ownership.
Okay.
Because you couldn't split those parcels, there wouldn't be enough.
How do you do utilities that way? You know, I mean, that's, has to have separate utilities if you do that.
Wouldn't have to. Could run it through the main house and self-panel it out.
I mean, it would depend on what your use was for. If you were gonna rent it, I suppose you could say, you could just give one rental price and you would pay for the utilities.
Mhm. Like I currently on my triplex on Prospect, I pay all the utilities and it just included to the rent.
What's the need for the unattached? This is an unattached unit.
What's the need for it?
Yeah.
I actually think in Marshall, the need for that would be aging parents, or like you said, brand new kids that are starting, that aren't ready to leave the nest.
Why wouldn't an insulated wall be the same thing?
Maybe like a duplex, something attached.
A well-insulated
There may
wall.
not be enough space.
Well, there's not, if there's not enough space for an addition with a well-insulated wall
Right.
and a separate entrance.
I think it's about a want in the community more than necessarily a need.
It's not, you know, this is you asked.
Oh, I was just, is this like the part, is this our way of getting more dense? Because we
Yeah.
can't, because we don't want to build those storage containers like he's
Right.
saying.
So I think the idea, and we're seeing it, National Association of Realtors has done a lot of work on this too, that the best way to create density, National Association of Realtors has done a lot of work on this, how to create density without having giant structures, and this is the way to do it.
Okay.
Is you already have a residential footprint that's already doing it, you just have to make sure parking's taken care of, which I'm dealing with right now.
Right.
And really, that's the only impact it really has. It's not more draw than you typically have, because you might have that number of people on that parcel already. It's really more so about making sure that cars can stay on the parcels.
So you would, if you were to develop an ordinance related to that to allow it, you would have to deal with a minimal amount of square footage for that lot.
Or
For the lot.
For the lot, yeah.
To allow any unit in
Yeah.
there, because even if you built one of those little tiny house things,
One thing, like my next door neighbor has an old carriage house, it's really a barn, I mean, it's a
So we
good
do.
sized barn.
you know, we do.
Could you turn that into an apartment?
It could be, ours could,
The way in, it has that giant carriage house.
Yeah,
It is, it's kind of a chic
Oh,
thing, you
yeah.
know.
but I mean, that would be
Yeah.
one example there.
ours is like 24 by 25, so.
You can move out there.
1,000 square feet. Many times I've thought about it.
That's a one bedroom apartment, that's almost a two bedroom. You could knock that out, you could make a lot of money on that.
Yeah.
The one next to me would be like, you could probably do a 3-bedroom
Yeah.
apartment there, I mean, it's a
Yeah.
pretty good size.
Marcia, maybe this has been spoken to, but I just wanted to refresh my memory about the survey. Was there a survey sent to?
Yes, there were,
Many.
so, there were,
Any real thumbnail, small thing, so.
yes. I'm trying to think if there's a good spot in here that I could refer you to, or that I could kind of rattle off a few things, but
Okay.
the engagement, so there were, there were pop-ups all throughout last summer. Actually, here's some information. We had a July pop-up with 141 participants.
Okay.
August pop-ups with 142 participants. There was 2 online surveys. The first one had over 1,000 people that responded. 2 open houses with a combined 84 people, it looks like, or that did the survey associated with that open house. And that second survey, we had another almost 200 people kind of right at the end there.
Okay.
So,
Very,
yeah.
sounds like it's very, very, very broad, is what I'm
We
hearing.
tried as hard as possible to be.
Okay.
The public.
Yeah.
We did even the signs with the QR code that people can scan.
We have
Yeah, I've
fake
seen-
money to give out to
Yeah.
people.
I've seen those.
Yeah, in order for them to vote with the fake money.
Okay.
That was actually a popular way.
Mhm.
Yeah, on page 42, it goes over a lot of this.
Okay. I didn't get a chance to look at that.
Oh, I think it starts on,
Thank you.
yeah,
He said 42.
that's kind of midway through. It starts a few pages before that.
Yeah.
39.
Yeah, there's, yeah. All right, go ahead.
So we've always, and before the reviews that we've had before, we've always talked about the effects of higher density versus, and they're, not that the general public needs to be aware of certain things, but that's one thing they need to be aware of is what higher density does to a residential community, an existing residential community. Having a higher having a higher density for new residential is, can be acted differently, but basically what you're saying is you're changing the density of an existing portion of the residential area and you're changing it to a higher density.
I think there's a lot, when you're shaping that kind of zoning ordinance, would you consider, obviously like minimum lot size, for adding structures, I think you still have your setback requirements, so there might be some lots where it just doesn't work, right?
Yeah, yeah, my lot would be overbuilt if I tried to put a garage on it.
And then,
I'd have to go to the CBA for a garage.
What do you think, Aaron, what do you think the percentage of built out residential is in Marshall? What percentage is built out? Where, I mean, even if you went down to the industrial zone to build residential,
You're saying how much residential do we actually have available that could be something? Not much.
Probably not
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well,
So the only place to do it is to increase the density of existing residential areas.
I'm full, and here's what I'll give you to think about or consider or look at. West Prospect is a great example of this.
Mhm.
They're all giant historic homes and it's all multifamily there, all in a row. And you really wouldn't know it unless you know it, I don't think. It's not much different than the rest of Marshall if you're driving around. I mean, there's a couple of them that maybe are not as nice as I would keep my buildings, but I think that's not necessarily a multifamily thing, it's an individual thing. The biggest problem that I see myself with increasing density up to perhaps 40, I don't know about above four it's tricky. Is parking. As long as the parcel can accommodate, depending on what you have for units, meaning like the ordinance might have to be a little bit in the weeds detail wise in this one, which I hate to say the word, but we might. Rental ordinance.
Oh,
that has come up
People were
more.
shot the last time, I'm just saying. Bodies are all hidden carefully, but they were shot.
A realtor of all things, talking about people regulating their property, disgusting. I do think one of the worst things and the biggest impact is just cars.
Didn't we run into that with the builder over on not Marshall, but builder that changed the one commercial unit over there
oh,
behind the GAR hall.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
my God, I even.
Puckett. Puckett.
Bucket, yes.
Yeah, Scott. Okay.
So I mean, we dealt with him in the sense that, yeah, that was a great project that he had there, but people were gonna have to park across the street in the post office parking lot,
Yeah.
you know? So, yeah, but you're raising the density of that area by doing it.
It's seriously.
One of your survey answers was that people live here because they're willing to walk those. So you wouldn't even need a car.
I've been walking to and from work, like a good citizen. I'm not taking downtown parking. I'm walking to work.
When
We
it's-
should all do that.
When it's nice out, I do.
Exactly.
Look at your age.
But only when it's nice out.
You can walk to work.
A mile.
It's half a mile. The whole city's a mile across.
Yeah. I don't get any steps walking to and from work. It's like not even enough for my
Right.
Fitbit to register it. It's like, really, that's all you got?
Well, I would say density it should be an issue that we either deal with, if the planning commission is supposed to deal with density, then.
I think parking will deal with density. I really do. I think
I think the parcels that can't they can't squeeze lots on it or park cars on there, they won't do it. They'll do what they can. Like there's a couple that my entire block, which is Prospect Mulberry Mansion, is a prime candidate to be all multi-family. It already halfway is.
Dude's house across from yours would be a great multi-unit one. That,
The big gray one,
the young guy from Georgia.
I thought about that. I
Yeah.
looked at that one.
He's really done a nice job with it, but it's perfect for multi-unit.
Yeah. So I'm a huge advocate for it. I think that's trending statewide realtors, national realtors. That's what we're seeing across the country as being a solution because there's housing issues everywhere. And people don't like the big complexes. They don't like them. They draw on a lot of negative feelings. They don't like the way they look. So I think that if we can craft this right way, we have a lot of giant homes that aren't full of
People
people.
love flats,
And there's a way we
you know?
yeah. Little studios, my little Airbnb studios do well. I'm actually the workers are in most of them. I think there's clever ways to do it. I really think that parking is the biggest hurdle. We have to make sure we're tough on. The streets clogger.
We could go back to horses. We have our own carriage house.
That's why, like, streets like mine, where there are very few garages, I mean, all over Marshall Way, houses don't have garages. It's because people were walking to work or they were putting their horse in their neighbor's carriage house.
Right. Well, your work that wasn't that far away. That's why you lived here, because you could work here.
I'd love to have a horse, but they're more maintenance than a car. I grew up with horses and I'm just telling you.
I would have no place to hitch it at the office. It'd be bad.
Well, we could work something out. Listen, I'd love to have
Or
a horse.
bikes, you know, maybe.
I see a lot of,
The master plan is calling for more accessible, non-motorized transport. So there you go. One bike lanes.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do about electric bikes, in the ordinance? How will you deal with electric bikes? Key West is a prime example of people walk everywhere or they ride their bikes everywhere. Well, guess what bikes they're riding everywhere?
Mhm.
Because they can get there faster at 30 miles an hour. And the walk that I'm on in the morning, they come right up behind you at 30 miles an hour and there's no sound. There's zero sound. So,
So
beep, beep, or
Quiet
ding,
green.
ding. They have little bells.
Ding, ding.
They don't do that.
they're annoying.
Because they have headphones on, they can't hear anyway, so. So when we talk about bike accessibility, we need to define what a bicycle is, like Mackinac Island stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you'd have to just distinguish between which non-motorized path allows that.
Mhm.
So if it's a non-motorized, non-attached to a roadway, an e-bike wouldn't work.
That's what they're dealing with there, and the way it's a lot easier to deal with at Mackinac Island, you just don't let them on the ferry coming over. But,
You don't know.
yeah, down there, you're saying that the electric bikes need to be out there with the cars. That's where they need to be.
Well, if they're doing 30 and the speed limit is 30.
Yeah.
They're a car.
Yeah.
I would agree, because most of our streets are not that fast anyways. And I think all signs are pushing towards things slowing down that are fast anyways. So it would work, it'd be perfect. There's no reason for them to be on those non-motorized paths, use the roadway.
Why couldn't we deal with higher density with, and the reason I ask you what percentage is built out is why couldn't we deal with higher density in the proposed multifamily areas?
Are available right now. I just don't think it's gonna get us where we need to be in terms of density we're looking for.
Well, but that to me is the only place we can go, because if you're gonna preserve the integrity of our town, part of that is the fact that two people do live in a 10,000 square foot mansion.
I disagree with that. I don't think that's what Marshall is. Yeah.
I think a lot of them
What's gonna change?
built for multi-generations, you know, for grandma and grandpa and mom and dad.
They were built to show them off.
I mean, but I still think they were more multi-generational.
Yeah, they are.
Houses,
were.
and now we've got, like you said, two people, one person living in these big houses. Some people might really want to convert.
The second and third family in some of the houses were the servants.
Yeah.
In those houses that actually lived there with them, so. Just throwing that out. Higher density works a lot better in multifamily than it does changing existing. As the word change falls in play there.
This community loves change. I'm not sure what you're doing. I think you'd be well received. I think we'd have parades perhaps.
You want me to throw a real fly in the ointment?
Do it.
For you? you know, the national population is dropping by like 3% this year.
I know, our birth rate's
So-
1.6, it's not good.
Yeah, the baby boomers are, we're gonna be gone pretty soon, and then you're gonna be stuck with a
All
lot
these vacant
of
houses.
all these multi-unit dwellings, and
I'll rent them out, don't worry about it. I'll find tenants.
if you can
Leave
find
them to me,
people,
you're welcome.
I
I'll take
mean,
care of
I get what you're saying, but the numbers, I mean, when China is dropping 10% yearly.
Well, yeah, if we
And
deport
so-
That's why I think it makes more
another
sense
100
to
million,
convert
then,
homes that
you
you
know.
know.
I'm just saying,
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because all of these regular homes, my triplex
I'm looking at
can
the
be
Twilight
turned right
House.
back. They seriously can. You tear all the walls down and put a staircase in, you got a regular home again. There is that value. I mean, it's an expense, but if we're talking about genuinely not having humans to fill homes, which could happen, I'm not saying you're wrong, I think you're probably right. It could be converted back down. So I think there's value there versus building a giant block monstrosity, 24 or 30 units or whatever.
let me throw you another wrinkle.
Sure.
Try and find a contractor that'll do that for you.
I mean, I'd rather put flats and.
Do what?
So we have a lot of apartments.
So I see those little houses that Tim was showing me, those little cottage things.
They're
They
adorable.
look like dog houses, what they look like. They look like,
Hey, be careful. I heard like this 800 square foot cottage on the way to put in Perry County.
Or kid playhouses.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Perfect.
My wife wants it bigger.
We did discuss having a historical commission that would oversee. Yeah, they would oversee, you'd have to come to for permission to, for paint colors and renovations.
No, bro.
Well, yeah, and I filled them in on what happened the last time we
So-
had that up. He's like, you wanna do.
So that's the real thing. My cousin lives in Woodruff in Indianapolis, and they have some very strict
Mhm.
codes there.
Right.
And right down to the street lights, so there's cast iron failing, so we have to take these big things down and rewire them without any. I don't know if you have it down.
I
It's beautiful.
I needed support on that and I didn't have any because nobody else had been through that.
My cousin-
There's like a line out the door of people going. "Dude, what are you talking about?
My cousin's coming tomorrow. I'll introduce you to him. Lives in Woodruff.
I'd love to, yeah.
It is interesting though, because like from my perspective, when we see all these responses that are like, we need to maintain the historic character of the town, how are we gonna do this? Like,
Well, unless it's my house and I have a lot of rotting boards and I want to put vinyl siding up.
Unless it's.
Or I want to do replacement windows because my windows are from 1908.
right,
And I would like to do vinyl and not wood.
right. I mean,
It's $40,000 to rehang these windows, what?
Right,
it's
exactly.
gonna cost me $10,000 to paint my house every 5 years.
Yeah,
For now, it's in your work.
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, but it is, if that one item, right, like maintaining the historic character of Marshall, right? It's difficult to find that path to help ensure that, right? We're kind of, unless we would consider, like, I know the rental ordinance, like, that's not, I mean, I kind of agree with you.
It's tricky.
I hate to say it, but there is some bad stuff that happens,
Anti-business.
right?
It does
Um,
become kind of anti-business a little bit.
Yeah,
Because there are ordinances and I have clients that will not invest in certain communities because they're tough on it. I tend to think that in Marshall, I may be biased, I'm only work here. I tend to think that most of the rentals in this city are in fairly decent condition, not horribly run down.
I think I just see I get called into the really bad ones.
Yeah, okay, so I think you might be only seeing the bad ones. You can come see mine sometime.
I'm not saying that they're all bad, but it's difficult to deal with them.
The bad ones.
Main Street in Battle Creek used to be beautiful, beautiful. A lot in Washington Heights
Yeah.
area. and
Mhm.
Split these houses up in 4 and 5 different
Yeah.
units. So Bear Creek has your nasty word, so, and even then, it's very difficult to enforce. Because then you need enforcement agents on the back end, and the city can't afford to do it, so.
Yeah, I mean, you'd need,
It's a real.
I'd need help.
Yeah, rental ordinances, in my experience so far, are toothless things that just generate revenue. That's all it is you pay your renewal or whatever to have your rental, but they don't go look at it, cause it frankly defeats the cost of having.
Neighbors are pretty good around here about putting
Certainly.
pressure on landlords. Two houses down from me, there's a triplex house next,
I think that's true.
yeah, I think so. And there were, so many years ago, before COVID, there were some drug dealers who were living there. And everybody on the street was calling the landlord, going, get them out of there. What do you do? Don't rent to those people. And I think there's enough pressure generally.
There are
You know, I called them.
I
still,
was one.
yeah, but there are still, plenty of
Some bad
houses
ones.
that are problematic and difficult to apply leverage to get those people out, right? And, I work with the cops on them and, it's still
Yeah,
difficult,
Tenant
but,
rights are way too strong.
but that rental, the rental issue and then the historic,
It's tough.
those two things are without action to try some kind of work. I mean,
We're past bringing them down. Used to be the way to do it. You just burn it down. So. Catches fire and burns down. So. Oh, well.
Well, that happened to my neighbor in the first house, and now they're behind me, so I don't really like that idea, Tim, but I get it, it's sometimes the most effective way.
It is, and everybody knows about it too, so. It's
I'm gonna stop talking.
yeah, we had up on Division Street, we had a similar situation and the neighbors took care of it. I mean, we all took care of it with the police. So, and that brought in, FBI or whatever, but it brought in, and they got it out, but it was a good 6 months to a year. And that was a direct route to the high school, it was right up Division Street, so. But I think there's usually that much pressure,
Yeah.
neighborhood pressure. It's part of why people live here is because
mhm,
you're living amongst people who feel the same way. So,
who care, right?
yeah, who
It's
care?
great to have people that care.
And we have a family of 4 children under 11 next to us. So, even though, and the other family of 4 on the other side of us moved up to Prestantia, but right in the historical district, right in the corner of Division and Prospect. So there's 6 people living in a house, designed for 6 people.
Yeah.
So
A ton of kids on Mulberry too.
Yeah.
Which I'm glad. It's nice to see.
Yeah.
Young families.
Yeah, I have one of my tenants is a couple of 2 young little girls, and then one of them is a little boy. Yeah.
They're always running, oh, there's a gang of little kids just running on Mulberry.
Yeah.
So I had one more that I was gonna point out it's on page 60 of 69 or 89 for the packet, but in terms of making Gateway Quarter safer, it has 2 streetscapes of the current East Michigan Avenue, which I think is through downtown, through the fountain. And I just wanted to point out you see what the current one is on the top. And Carter, you can look at mine if you want. The preferred one shows a parking lane, looks like
Oh, that one.
yeah, and then it looks like there's a bike. Is that an intended bike lane in the
Yes.
middle of that?
Yeah.
So the problem with this is gonna be, before I retired from the state police, I can tell you the law changed. And the law now requires, I think, 3.5 or 4 feet to legally pass a biker. Am I not
No,
seeing that right?
I don't think the intent is to have a bike lane.
That white thing is not a bike lane there?
No, so I think it's just shown to show additional, Look at, that is actually nice, on
Looks like
90.
a candy cane,
He's looking at this.
like a barber pole.
Oh, if you, it labels it on 89, the one on the other page, it actually labels each cross section, if that what you're talking about.
You know what mine is?
Yeah,
Cause I don't think that's intended to be a bike.
No.
bike lane. That's like a food truck like area.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah,
And then you
that's
got
not-
a 9-foot lane. Okay,
Right, that's not like a transport line.
okay.
I think the idea is.
That
we
wouldn't-
had lots of people with food trucks that want to do something downtown and lots of people downtown, including myself, want to see food trucks.
Okay,
And that way, we could, for events and stuff, all the food vendors could have their own designated spot downtown. So everybody can kind of line up and have an area. to do it.
oh, okay.
And they have this set up, so the parades and everything still will go through just like normal, doesn't change anything for parades. or anything.
We had some real questions about that originally too, and so then they changed it and gave us
Yeah.
2 views.
Okay.
Yeah. There was lots of people that ate.
So a parade will have to be on this side.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, how do you do a parade with a median strip?
So,
There's nothing, I mean, the parade should go over the engagement, it's not high enough.
Well, there's flowers in.
Oh, no, we
It's on one
moved,
side.
it's the one side, that's what it is.
It'd be the food truck side that's wider.
Yeah.
That empties out, that becomes like, right,
And
that's
then-
right, that's great lane, and then they go on the other side.
People can even sit. and eat.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, well, thanks for clarifying that, because that did make sense to me.
Gotcha. Yeah.
What did MDOT think of that?
I think they don't, I get the impression that they want us to take it on.
yes, I
They're
think,
gonna restripe it, I think, this summer and test it.
Yep.
To see how people react. And this is us saying, this is what we'd love to see here. And I do think that they want us to take everything back. And I don't wanna speak for the city here, but I don't know that we're necessarily opposed to it.
Right.
Right.
But it would be nice to maintain our own thing. I think.
because then it would not be, it would be city street, right?
Right, we could maybe put an ordinance that says no through trucks.
Did you do a survey with your existing restaurants in regard to the food trucks?
We didn't serve, we just had this open survey. I mean, they could have participated, but we didn't survey them directly.
And how do you charge for that?
So there,
City charge for it?
so there is, there's a food truck license that's actually pretty extensive. They have to, know their spot that they're going to when they apply for the license. And so what's surprising to me, like you asked about food truck in front of like a restaurant. So we've had restaurants that have hired food trucks to be like in their back parking lot, and that, to me, that's surprising. Like you're already selling food, but they, want to bring in, this for a contrast to what they're doing, right? And it draws people, towards their restaurant, or bar/restaurant, right? So I think that people are embracing that a little bit more than what I was kind of expecting in the downtown area.
I'm planning to go to one tomorrow. Cooking with Beans is at Darling's tomorrow. Stop by, it's gonna be lovely.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, apparently it's great tacos. Want to check out
In the back or out front?
up front, I think.
Well, the farmer's market often has. a food truck.
Yeah.
I think it's just something that society in general is kind of trending towards. They like the idea of options, of there being a little bit of variable.
Just have to have a snack.
And I work downtown. I'd love to have different options selfishly.
Yeah, maybe both.
So,
So we're not gonna do the train anymore down the middle of
I pushed
Michigan
really-
Avenue or?
I tried really hard. Turns out tracks are very expensive.
Streetcar. It was a coal-fired, steam locomotive that went down through there at one time.
It would be convenient if it.
and now it's parked over in the Ford Museum.
I don't know if it's the same one or not.
There's a bunch of them.
Oh, yeah.
Our residence is there.
Yes, a roundhouse is there.
Kennedy's almost.
I have a better understanding of some stuff.
So in your thing on Michigan Avenue, my biggest thing is, I think you have to be careful if you're gonna reduce that to 2 lanes with a turn lane, which I'm in favor of, because nobody I won't say nobody, but I can't tell you how many times my wife and I have a heart attack when somebody doesn't look, throws the door open.
Oh,
Yeah.
Louis Bakery.
Yeah.
Yep.
And,
Yeah.
and a lot of folks do not think that is totally, as you say, on them.
If that driver is looking just slightly to the left, they don't see it.
Yeah.
And they open that door, they think it's the driver's fault.
Yeah.
No, it's you because you opened the door.
There was a study that
Did do
they
that?
served, yeah, they showed a study that was completed about the types of accidents that were downtown and the number, and side swipes were the number one.
I believe it. 100%, so I'm in favor of that, but then you think of no truck route would be a real one.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So.
And no agriculture,
Yes.
no more combines.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's only a couple times a year.
Yeah.
One's for corn, one's for wheat.
No, you worked downtown for 8 years in a row, and you tell me it's once a year.
Once a year.
I kind of on farmers.
Me too.
Too, Tim, I like farmers.
I like
You
farmers.
can't do it. You gotta go around. You gotta go around.
We used to drive a tractor from 14.5 mile road in H Drive, which is exactly 8 miles from downtown. We drive a tractor and a wagon with the raw materials and have their feet ground. Now where
Yeah.
where she's got her
You
wedding,
don't grade them.
the grain, look at that granary, the old granary. The old granary, she's got the wedding,
It used to be Orthers.
yeah, Orthers, yeah.
Bill here. Oh, no.
Yeah, I grew up on a 40/20.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, I'm not a farmer, but I love that for you. I love that experience. Thank you for telling me about it. However.
Just no combines down Main Street.
None. Glad you got that.
Gonna have a sign with a combine on it with a cross going through it. No combines.
They are a bit bigger than one.
Yeah.
Maybe we should bring back some like cattle herding down.
Oh my God, wouldn't that be something? Yeah, there you go.
I forgot.
He used to take a 22 to show and tell too.
Exactly. We did, we used to drive two drivers. Because you had to get here, you know, and so what we would do is we'd park like 2 or 3 blocks away, you know, and then go to driver's ed for the classes. Cause we usually had 14.
I just want to say, I serve on the school board at my parent yelling at before West Green Street. Here in Marshall, I'm one of those people that lives in a house that's way too big for myself. Thoroughly entertaining. So I just wanted to say, I serve on the school board, I serve on other private boards here in town, and so I know how hard this work is, and I just wanted to say that I appreciate all of you for your public service. Especially, I know some of you are getting paid potentially to be here, but the rest of you are not, and I know how much time you're paid, and how much shit you take from people, and so, and I came ready for a fight.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Usually get comments.
Yeah. Is that recorded, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
We should show it.
Exactly.
And trans.
Board reports.
I really have nothing. I was just gonna say, if anything comes up in the next, few weeks as you're reviewing the master plan and you have questions, it would be great to kind of get a heads up so that I can kind of prep the progressive as they are preparing to come to our next meeting.
Publishing is end of September or first of September? Roughly.
Here, just a second. I had in my, here we go. So the idea would be September 15th, if it all kind of works out the way I had it laid out, September 15th, it would be going back to city council to accept the resolution.
We used to have to deal with the townships also. Is
We-
that in there?
So we will notify all of the adjacent municipalities, county, all of those people as part of the notification process before, or, when we open that up for public comment. And so they will have the same opportunity for public comment that everybody does. You know,
63 days.
It-
It's 63 days they get after city council opens the public comments. And then you would have a public hearing after the 63 days. When we can hear all for everything.
And then, regarding the townships, what about Marshall Townships, Marshall Township and Joint Planning Commission? Because the master plan, there's a plan that we usually have between the township and the city. It's there, it's with an agreed upon, development area, one way or another, whether it's industrial, residential, or whatever. Has to be a term that's agreed on.
I don't think that we made any changes in those areas that were 425 into the city, kind of specifically for that reason. Those are all kind of to align with the counties, or not the counties, but the townships proposed planning.
West Drive was always the biggest area with the township, with Marshall Township.
Yeah,
What happens to both sides?
right.
A lot of available land there.
I'm all about development. I'm all for it. I think people should have the right to do what they want with their land.
I get it.
Solid, lovely.
US.
It was warm, which is why we're there. 80 degrees every day, 70 degrees every day. And we did get, interestingly enough, we very seldom get any weather down there, but we got 7 inches of rain in 3 hours.
Oh my God.
And when you're only 6 feet above sea level, the water has to get out, it has to get out to the ocean one way or another. And there's not that many ways for it to do that except across the property. So you just stay away from the edges. And then within 2 or 3 days, the water level. That was the only way they ever got fresh water. No way to store aquifers down there, so there's no way to store it. Now, what else can happen? What else can happen? They provide 9 million gallons a day of water. The Navy still provides 1 million. And Desalinator is still working there. So, but you, only once a year or so ago, I got out in the middle of the night. Obvious reasons, and went to turn the water on the water tap, there was no pressure. And they'll do that quite often, where they reduce the pressure down during the night. So
Yeah, that makes sense.
it does, it makes a great deal of sense. They live based on the fact that there's no water. So water has to be brought in. And there's no propane. Florida doesn't use propane. Excuse me, natural gas. They do use propane. But you don't need it because you don't need to stay warm. God takes care of that for you. That's it.
Right. Then. Yeah. Sure.
Lovely, lovely and wonderful.